Welcome, my family. Before we jump in, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. I'd also love to know, where are you watching from and what time is it there? Please hype me on YouTube. Thanks. I never wanted a third roommate. Our apartment at 1470 Maple Ridge Lane in Portland, Oregon was already too cramped, too loud, too alive with the sounds of thin walls and old pipes that cried at night. My name is Liv Marston. I'm 22. And until a few months ago, I thought loneliness was something that lived outside of people. Something you could fix with laughter, roommates, noise, wine, Netflix. I didn't know it could live in the walls, or worse, crawl out of them. It was Jenna's idea to bring in a third girl. Rent was choking us, and the landlord had just raised it again. We just need someone quiet, drama-free, normal, Jenna insisted, stirring boxed mac and cheese while I paced the kitchen. Normal. Funny word now. Because Ivy didn't just fail to meet that requirement. She was the opposite of normal in every way that mattered. I remember the night she arrived. February rain hammered the windows, and the hallway outside was buzzing with flickering yellow lights. Jenna opened the door, smiling too wide, relief painted all over her face because Ivy was soft-spoken, polite, dark-eyed, and gentle in that librarian sort of way. Ivy stepped in out of the rain, clutching a single backpack. No luggage, no boxes, no suitcase. "Is that all you have?" I asked. Ivy smiled, small and serene. "I travel light." Her voice was calm, almost musical. So calm it made me uneasy. We showed her the tiny bedroom at the end of the hall, the one with the strange old vent system built into the floor and wall. She nodded gratefully, set down her backpack, and closed the door. And locked it. That first night I woke at 2:48 a.m. to the sound of whispering. My room shared a wall with hers, and though it was faint, I could tell it was Ivy's voice. Low, rhythmic, affectionate. I pressed my ear to the drywall. "Shh, don't cry," she whispered. "I'll feed you soon." I stepped back, pulse thumping. Feed who? The next morning, Ivy ate breakfast alone before we woke up. She washed her dishes quietly, placed them back perfectly, then slipped into her room and turned the lock again. She never ate with us, never lingered, always smiling, always gentle, always distant. By the end of the second week, the smell arrived. A metallic odor seeped from the vents, like pennies and spoiled meat. It would thicken late at night, clinging to the back of my throat. Candles couldn't hide it. Jenna blamed the building. "Old pipes," she said, "or rats." But then we found it. On a chipped white plate near the vent in our living room sat a slab of raw, bleeding meat. Fresh, pink-red, slick and glistening like a tongue. Jenna gagged. "Who the hell?" I already knew. Ivy's locked door, her whispers, feeding something. I knocked, heart racing. She opened it halfway, head tilted. "Can I help you, Liv?" "There's raw meat by the vent," I snapped. "Did you put it there?" She blinked. "They get hungry at night?" I laughed, not because it was funny, but because fear has a way of escaping through the wrong exit. "Who gets hungry, Ivy? The rats? The ghosts? Who?" She smiled like I was a child throwing a tantrum. "You don't hear them yet, but you will." That was the moment the line between roommate and intruder cracked for me. I wanted her gone immediately. But Jenna, ever the diplomat, begged for patience. "She's odd, okay, but she pays on time. We just have to set some boundaries." Boundaries. As if a locked door and feeding vents were quirks. That night I heard Ivy again. Not whispering, cooing, comforting something. Or someone. I pressed my ear to the wall. The floor vent at my feet vibrated softly. And then, I swear, I heard a second voice. Wet, trembling, childlike, hungry. My entire body went cold. The next day I demanded Ivy leave. Jenna backed me, finally freaked out enough. We confronted her in the kitchen. Ivy didn't protest. She didn't yell. She didn't defend herself. She simply smiled. "Okay," she said gently, "if that's what you want." She walked to her room, closed the door, and locked it. We heard no packing, no movement, nothing. After an hour of silence, I knocked. No answer. I knocked harder. "Ivy, open the door." Nothing. When Jenna returned with a screwdriver to remove the knob, we worked the screws out and pulled. But when the doorknob came off, we froze. There was no latch behind it, no mechanism, no frame, just smooth, continuous wall. Jenna staggered back. "Where's the door?" I ran my palm along the place where the frame had been, seamless, as if the doorway had never existed. Her room was gone, not locked, not barricaded, gone. That night I barely slept. Every light stayed on. Every sound made me flinch. At 3:11 a.m. I sat up, heart pounding, because the whispering had returned. Not through the wall this time, through the vent in my room. I crawled toward it on shaking hands. Cold air brushed my face through the slats, and then I heard it. Liv, not Ivy's voice. Hungry. I clapped my hand over the vent. Tears blurred my vision. I backed away, shaking uncontrollably. In the morning, I stumbled to Jenna's room to tell her we needed to leave, that we needed to break the lease, get a hotel, anything. I knocked. No answer. Her bed was made. Her purse was gone. Her shoes were gone. Jenna was gone. I called her phone. It rang from inside the vents. I heard it. A familiar ringtone echoing through the walls like a taunt. When the police arrived, they searched the apartment. Every room, except Ivy's. Because there was no Ivy's room to search. No door, no frame, no record she'd ever lived there. The police asked me if Jenna had a boyfriend, if she partied, if she used drugs, if she ran away. Their eyes said hysterical, their tone said unstable, but I know what I heard. I know what I smelled. I know what was whispering through the vents. Now I sit awake every night. I don't sleep. I can't. I hear two voices in the walls. One is Ivy's soft, patient whisper. The other is Jenna, crying, begging, hungry. And I think the walls are starting to breathe. I didn't go to work the next day. I couldn't. Every time I moved, the vents seemed to pulse with breath, as if the apartment itself were awake and waiting. I sat on the couch with my knees pulled to my chest, gripping a kitchen knife like it was a life jacket. People always imagine terror as a scream, but real terror is silence. Real terror is waiting. Real terror is knowing something has already chosen you. By late afternoon, I realized something else was wrong. All the photos on our walls, the ones Jenna hung of us at the coast, of her birthday last year, of our dumb pumpkin carving night, had changed. Not drastically at first, but enough that I gasped. In every single photo, Ivy was there in the background, standing on sidewalks, sitting at other tables, watching us, even in pictures that were over a year old, long before we met her. I staggered back, dizzy. "No," I whispered, shaking my head. "No, no, no." I ripped them down one by one and threw them in the trash. But tearing paper didn't erase the truth. She had always been here. Or she made it look that way. Both possibilities were nightmares. I called the police again. "My roommate is missing," I insisted. "You're not listening. She didn't leave, she's gone. Something is in our walls." The dispatcher spoke gently like I was a child. "Ma'am, has anyone else confirmed she lived there? We only have one resident listed at your address." "One, what?" I shouted. "There are 3 of us. Me, Jenna, and Ivy." "Ma'am," she repeated, "you are the only tenant on record." I hung up before she could finish. My heartbeat pounded inside my skull. I didn't know which was worse, that no one believed me, or that no one even remembered there had been anyone else at all. By nightfall, the smell returned. Thick, metallic, soured. I lit candles. The flames trembled even when I didn't breathe near them. Around 2:40 a.m., the vent in the living room rattled, just once, like a fist had struck the metal from inside. I inched closer, every hair on my arms rising. "Jenna," I whispered. For a moment, silence. Then I heard it. A faint, trembling sob. "Help me." I pressed my palm flat to the cold metal. "I'm here. I'm right here. Tell me what to do." A wet, shuddering inhale. "Don't feed it." My blood froze. "What? Jenna, what is it? What's in there with you?" "Don't feed it. It gets stronger. It..." The voice cut out in a scream. I stumbled back, covering my ears. Something else pressed against the vent from inside, pushing, stretching, as if testing the barrier. I ran to my room and slammed the door. I didn't sleep, not even for a second. By morning, I made my decision. I was leaving. For good. I stuffed clothes, chargers, cash, and my passport into a duffel. I didn't care about furniture or dishes or deposits. I just needed to breathe air that didn't taste like metal and rot. But when I opened the front door, Ivy was standing there. Dry, clean, smiling, like she'd just returned from a morning walk. "Going somewhere, Liv?" she asked, hands folded behind her back. I froze. "Where is she?" I whispered. "Where's Jenna?" Ivy didn't answer. She stepped inside, brushing past me, closing the door behind her with a soft click. I stumbled backward into the living room, gripping my duffel like a shield. "Tell me where she is, Ivy. Tell me what you did." She tilted her head with that same patient half-smile. "I didn't do anything. They took her. And they're still hungry." My breath hitched. "They?" She knelt in front of the vent, caressing it with her fingertips. "It's easier if you stop fighting. They like you, Liv. They like your warmth, your voice, your fear." I stared at her, nausea burning my throat. "You're insane." "No." She looked up at me calmly. "I'm chosen. And now so are you." She leaned her ear to the vent, whispering something I couldn't hear. The metal seemed to quiver under her breath. I backed away slowly, inching toward the kitchen, toward the back door. "I'm leaving," I said. "You can keep this nightmare. I'm done." Ivy stood, blocking my path. "You can leave the apartment," she said gently. "But you can't leave them. Once you hear them, once they know your name, they follow. Walls are just doors with different shapes." I bolted. I shoved past her, sprinting to the back exit. My hands shook so violently I missed the lock twice before wrenching it open. Cold daylight hit my face. I ran down the stairs, across the parking lot, into my car, fumbling for the keys. My lungs burned. When I finally peeled out of the lot, I didn't look back. I drove until I reached a motel outside the city. Dingy, cheap, but safe enough for one night. I collapsed onto the bed, shaking, and passed out from sheer exhaustion. At 3:07 a.m., I woke to the sound of whispering, not in the motel walls, in the vent above the nightstand. I stared at it, numb with terror, as a voice slid through the darkness. "Liv, don't leave us." I covered my ears, tears spilling, hungry. "No," I croaked. "No, no, no." I grabbed my bag and fled the room barefoot, racing to my car. I drove again. Another motel, another town, another night. It didn't matter. Every room has vents, and the whispers always find me. A week has passed. I don't know what city I'm in anymore. I barely eat. I barely speak. I barely exist outside the hours between 2:50 and 3:20 a.m., when I sit frozen in whatever room I'm renting and listen to them breathe through the walls. Tonight, though, something changed. Tonight, I didn't just hear Ivy. I heard Jenna. Closer. Clearer. Liv. I'm so hungry. My hands are shaking as I write this. I can feel movement in the vent above me. Not whispers now. Breathing. Steady. Waiting. Maybe Ivy was right. Maybe there is no leaving. Maybe once something knows your voice, your scent, your loneliness, it crawls into the spaces you never look at and waits until you're too tired to fight. The vent cover is shifting. The screws are loosening. They're coming through. I can smell that same metallic rot filling the room, warm and wet. I don't know if Jenna is alive or dead or something in between, but her voice is right against the vent now, soft and pleading. Let us in. We're cold. We're hungry. Please live. I'm staring at the vent as I write this, watching the metal bend outward like a rib cage splitting open. I can see fingers now, thin, pale fingers, pressing through the gap. I don't think there will be a part 3. I don't think there's anywhere left to run. The vent is opening, and I think I'm next. I heard the footsteps before I ever met Marin, back when I still believed I understood the shape of the building I lived in. Even now, I can hear them. Slow, measured steps pacing the ceiling above me, as though someone tall and patient is walking in a room that, according to the blueprints the leasing office taped beside the elevator, doesn't exist. My name is Laurel, and when I moved into Eastridge Apartments on 912 Alder Street in Salem, Oregon, I wasn't afraid of anything, not even loneliness. I should have been. I arrived in late October when the rain never really stopped, only softened or hardened, like a mood. The building was old brick that had slouched over time, the kind of place where the carpets smelled like years of steam cleaning over someone else's disasters. But it was cheap, and I was tired of sleeping on my sister's couch after my breakup with Evan. I told myself a new apartment meant a new start, a smaller life, a quieter one. I didn't know that quiet can rot just as much as noise. I rented Unit 2B, second floor, end of the hall, right beneath what I assumed was 3B. The ceiling over my bed always felt low, like it was leaning down to listen. On my first night, as I lay there among half-unpacked boxes and stale radiator heat, I heard it, footsteps above me, rhythmic, pacing, not frantic, not angry, just continuous, back and forth, back and forth. A human pattern. I found it oddly comforting. It meant someone was there, someone awake, someone living their life above mine. The next morning I met her. I was juggling a jar of pasta sauce and a stack of mail in the hallway when the door to 3B opened behind me. A woman with auburn hair, soft eyes, and a warm sweater stepped out, holding Tupperware. She looked like a Pinterest image, homey, harmless, cinnamon-scented. "Hi," she said, smiling. "You must be the new neighbor. I'm Marin." We talked right there at the stairwell. She spoke in this gentle, melodic voice, like she was always half-humming. I told her I'd just moved in from Portland. She told me she'd lived in Eastridge almost 6 years. And then, because apparently she was some kind of domestic saint, she handed me banana bread. Actual banana bread. Who does that anymore? We became friends fast. Too fast, probably, but I was lonely and she was kind. We had tea in her apartment the next night. Her place was spotless, cozy, filled with plants and warm lighting and old books stacked in comforting chaos. But there was one strange thing. No sounds. Not a single creak or pipe groan. For an old building, that silence was unnerving. After tea, I went back downstairs, and just past midnight the footsteps started again. I laughed to myself in the dark. That's Marin, pacing around. Maybe on the phone, I told myself. But the pacing didn't stop. It went on until almost 3 a.m., rhythm steady, never shifting weight, never pausing, like someone who didn't get tired. The next morning, when I mentioned, lightheartedly, that she must have been up late, she tilted her head and said gently, "I wasn't home last night, Laurel. I stayed with a friend. I didn't get back until almost 8. I laughed it off. She must have been mistaken. Or maybe she meant 8 in the morning, not at night. People misspeak. People forget. People don't live in impossible spaces above their own apartments. But then I checked the elevator directory. Only 3 floors. 1A, 1C, 2A, 2C, 3A, 3C. No 4th floor. No unit above 3B. That night the noises escalated. It wasn't pacing anymore, it was knocking. 5 taps evenly spaced directly above my bed's headboard. I pressed my palm to the ceiling as if I could somehow touch whoever, or whatever, was on the other side. The plaster was cold. The tapping stopped instantly as if it sensed me. I told myself it was the building settling, wind pressure, plumbing, anything. But you don't get perfectly measured knocks from plumbing. When I mentioned it again to Marin, her entire demeanor changed. The warmth fell from her face like a dropped mask. "Laurel," she said quietly, "just don't go upstairs. Promise me." I laughed. Because what else do you do when your sweet tea-sipping friend says something that strange? "Upstairs to where?" I asked. "There is no upstairs." She swallowed, looked past me toward the staircase, then whispered, "Just don't go. They notice curiosity." That should have been the end. That was my moment to walk away, to move out, to run. Instead, that night the footsteps returned, louder than ever. Long drags across the floor, a scraping, a low, tuneless hum like someone trying to remember a melody they never fully learned. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, pulse climbing into my throat. At 2:11 a.m., a soft voice, barely audible, seeped through the vents. I couldn't make out the words, just sibilance, whispering. My name, maybe? Or the shape of my name. The next day I confronted Marin. I caught her at her door. "Marin, look, I need to know what's going on. Who lives above me?" She stared at me a long time. Too long. Then she smiled tightly. "No one lives above you," she said. Her voice was wrong, flat, rehearsed, like she was reciting from a script she hated. "I'm on the top floor, Laurel." And then she shut her door. I stood there, confused and angry and terrified in a way I didn't want to name. I needed proof. I needed to see for myself. That night, when the footsteps returned, I made a decision. I would go upstairs, not to confront her, not to accuse, just to see. There had to be a rational explanation. Around 1:40 a.m., I stepped into the stairwell. The whole building felt colder, as if the heat had been shut off on every floor. I climbed slowly, expecting to find the familiar third-floor landing, and I did. But the footsteps were still above me. I kept climbing. Except there were no more stairs, just a landing. And a door, 3B, another 3B. Same peeling wood, same tarnished brass numbers, same faded welcome mat with a floral pattern. A duplicate, directly above the apartment where I had just seen Marin hours earlier. The footsteps stopped the moment I touched the knob. I should have turned back, but I opened the door. The air inside was damp and humid, like a greenhouse left to rot. I stepped into a hallway that looked like Marin's, but not quite. The dimensions were wrong. The walls bowed inward, swollen with moisture, and something pulsed beneath the wallpaper like it was breathing. My foot sank slightly into the carpet, which squished like wet moss. "Marin," I whispered. No answer. Only the soft hum of something electrical, something alive. I moved forward, heart hammering so hard it shook my vision. The apartment was laid out exactly like hers. Same angles, same hallway, same light fixtures. But everything was decayed, as though decades had passed here while only days had passed below. The kitchen counters were bloated with water damage. Mold clawed up the cabinet doors. The ceiling above me throbbed with faint, rhythmic vibration, like footsteps inside the plaster. Then I heard a voice behind me. "Laurel." I spun. Marin stood in the doorway, pale, trembling, eyes shiny with fear. Not of me, but for me. "You shouldn't have come up here," she whispered. "They've been listening. They know your steps now." My throat tightened. "Marin, what is this place? Why is there another apartment?" She shook her head, tears spilling. "It doesn't matter. You open the door. Once you open it, they take an interest." She stepped toward me, hands out like she was approaching a wounded animal. "You have to leave. Go back, don't run. Just walk. And whatever you do, don't look at the ceiling." A low creak sounded above us, then another, heavy footsteps, too heavy, like something dragging its weight limb by limb. The plaster bulged downward in soft pulses. Maren froze, eyes wide. "Walk," she mouthed. I tried. God, I tried. I made it to the hall, but curiosity, stupid, fatal curiosity, made me glance upward. The ceiling split. Not like breaking drywall, more like peeling skin. A long, wet tear opened and something pale and jointed pressed through. An arm, but elongated, boneless-looking, coated in damp plaster dust. Fingers groped downward, reaching, searching. I ran. I didn't walk. I sprinted. I heard Maren scream my name, heard the ceiling rupture behind me, heard limbs thumping and dragging as they gave chase. The hallway stretched longer than it should have, like the space was unrolling itself to trap me. Just as a hand brushed the back of my coat, I lunged through the door and slammed it shut. The hallway outside was normal, dry, silent, real. I fell against the wall, shaking uncontrollably. When I looked up, the duplicate 3B door was gone. Just blank wall. I stumbled back to my apartment, locked every lock, shoved a chair under the knob and sat awake until sunrise listening. No footsteps, no whispers. The silence felt worse than the noise. The next morning, I went to find Maren. I knocked. No answer. I knocked for 10 minutes. Nothing. I asked the building manager where she was. He checked his clipboard and frowned. "Ma'am, 3B has been vacant for months." I laughed in his face. I don't know why. Maybe because laughter was easier than screaming. I said her name. He shook his head, confused. "We haven't had a Maren in this building in years." I checked my phone. Our messages were gone. The banana bread container was gone. Her apartment door was locked with a city notice taped to it. Abandoned unit. No entry. That night, the footsteps returned. Not above me this time. Inside my ceiling. Closer, slower. Learning my rhythm. I don't sleep now. I can't. Every time I close my eyes, I feel plaster dust on my face like breath. When I speak out loud, I hear faint echoing from inside the walls. My own words, repeated half a second late, as if something is practicing my voice. I don't know if Maren was real. I don't know if she was a warning or a lure, but I know this. There is another floor above mine. A floor that shouldn't exist. A floor that remembers footsteps. The ceiling is creaking again as I write this. 5 slow taps. Patient. Curious. Like it's asking to be let in. I won't run this time, but I think they're almost through. I met her in December, on the coldest morning Bangor had seen in 10 years. And by the end of that winter, I no longer trusted my own reflection. My name is Mara Linton, 19, freshman at St. Helena Community College. And until Rowan Hale walked into my life, I never believed a friend could be the thing that destroys you. The air that morning tasted like metal, bitter and sharp, and snow stacked in uneven ridges along the campus sidewalks. I was sitting alone in the student center, pretending to study, when a girl with dark curtain hair and olive skin asked quietly, "Is this seat taken?" She looked like she barely existed. Soft voice, soft posture, like a person forever apologizing for occupying space. I shook my head and she sat. "I'm Rowan." She didn't smile with her mouth, only her eyes, which stayed unblinking longer than felt normal. "Mara," I said. She nodded slowly, as if memorizing it. That was how it began. 2 lonely girls clinging to warmth in a snow-buried town. We got coffee that afternoon. We talked about nothing and everything. She had a poetic way of observing people, like she watched from a distance even when she was right in front of you. When she asked for my number, I felt grateful. No one ever chose me first. The first late-night call came 3 days later at 3:08 a.m. I jolted awake to my ringtone cutting through the dark. When I answered, there was no greeting, no whisper, no words at all, just breathing, slow, rhythmic, inches from the mic. "Hello?" I whispered. The breathing stopped, a soft click, and the line died. I told Rowan the next morning. She blinked, confused. I swear, Mara, I was asleep. I don't even stay up past midnight. She even showed her call log. No outgoing calls. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. People don't reveal their loneliness to just anyone, and I couldn't stand the thought of seeming paranoid or clingy. But the calls continued, always between 3:00 and 3:10 a.m., always silent, until they weren't. One night I heard my own name on the line. Mara, barely audible, like someone speaking through cupped hands. I sat frozen, phone pressed to my ear, breath trembling. Mara, let me in. My skin prickled. I hung up. The next day, Rowan noticed I was shaking at lunch. "You look exhausted," she murmured. I wanted to confront her again, but a part of me feared pushing her away. Instead, I just shrugged. "Didn't sleep?" Her voice softened. "Well, if you ever need company, I'm a good listener." I nodded, but something in her tone lingered in my mind hours later. Too calm, too certain, like she already knew why I hadn't slept. The real terror began when the video calls started. The first came on a Sunday night, 3:02 a.m. My phone buzzed violently on my pillow. Before I could think, I answered. The screen showed Rowan sitting in total darkness. Her face was barely visible, just the outline of her cheeks and that hair framing her shoulders. At first I thought it was frozen, but then her smile grew. Slow, deliberate, too wide. And her eyes, they weren't right. They looked reflective, like wet stones catching light from nowhere. "Rowan?" I whispered. The screen flickered, glitching, and suddenly she was closer, too close, like she'd crawled up the lens. I hung up, heart hammering. The next day I confronted her after English class. "I got a video call from you last night," I said, trying to sound casual, but failing. Rowan didn't laugh this time. Instead, she tilted her head, studying me. "Don't answer when it's not really me." The way she said it, soft, eerily sympathetic, made my stomach twist. What does that even mean? But she only smiled and changed the subject. That was the moment a quiet dread lodged itself beneath my ribs and never left. Every night after that, I silenced my phone, turned it face down, and buried it under a sweatshirt. But I still heard the vibrations at 3 a.m., like a pulse under my pillow. Eventually, I turned it off completely. That worked for 2 nights. On the third night, my phone turned itself back on. I woke to the screen glowing in the dark, the camera open, recording. I don't remember touching it. My hands shook as I fumbled to close the app. My reflection filled the screen, wide-eyed, disoriented, terrified, and for just a split second, it looked like someone stood behind me in the darkness. But when I whipped around, there was nothing. I stopped sleeping. I taped my phone to the wall across the room, terrified of it being near my bed. I told myself Rowan wasn't involved, that maybe someone hacked my number, that it could be explained. Anything to avoid believing that the one friend I had might be the source of my unraveling. Then came the night that destroyed any hope of denial. I was lying awake, watching the phone across the room, when it lit up. Incoming video call. Rowan. 3:01 a.m. My pulse kicked into overdrive. I didn't answer. I couldn't. But the screen didn't stop buzzing. It kept ringing and ringing until I finally stood, trembling, and stepped closer. The live preview showed my bedroom. Not Rowan's face. My room. The camera was angled behind me, even though the phone was still taped to the wall. I could see my own back on the screen, my own hair spilling over my shoulders. And then, from the corner of the frame, Rowan leaned into view, not smiling, just staring. I spun around. No one there. When I looked back at the phone, the screen went black. I ripped the phone off the wall and hurled it across the room. I slid down against my bed, shaking violently, whispering to myself, "It's not real. It's not real. It's not real." But something had crossed a line, and I knew, with sickening clarity, this wouldn't stop. Rowan noticed the next morning. "You look like you haven't slept in days," she said gently. brushing snow from her coat sleeve as we walked across campus. "Rowan," I breathed. "Something is wrong. Really wrong. I keep getting calls and it's your face, your voice." She stopped walking. "Do you want me to come over tonight?" she asked. No hesitation, no fear, just calm. The normal response would have been confusion, questions, disbelief. But Rowan acted like she'd known this moment was coming all along. I should have said no. I should have run. But fear can twist logic into dependency. I didn't want to be alone. Not anymore. That night she came to my dorm. We sat on my bed, lights low, wind rattling the window. "Just tell me what's happening," I whispered. Rowan folded her hands in her lap. "Some people," she said quietly, "are more open than others. More reachable." "Reachable by what?" She looked at me, and her eyes seemed darker than usual, as if swallowing the light. "When something calls you," she said, "you shouldn't answer. Because once it knows you'll pick up, it doesn't stop." Her words sank into me like ice. "Rowan, are you saying this thing, whatever it is using your voice?" She nodded once. "It likes me. I think that's why it chose you." Cold rushed through my veins. "What does it want?" Rowan stared at the floor. "To be let in." My heart stuttered. "Into what?" She raised her gaze. "You." I couldn't breathe. The radiator hissed in the corner, and for a moment I thought I might faint. "I don't want any of this," I whispered. "I know." Rowan's voice was unbearably soft. "But it does." Before I could respond, my phone lit up on the desk. 3 now a.m. Video call. Rowan. The air tightened around us. "Don't answer," she said. I didn't move. The phone buzzed again, and again, and then it slid across the desk by itself, stopping at the edge, camera aimed at us. My breath hitched. Rowan didn't flinch. When I finally looked at her, she was smiling. Not wide, not unhinged, just sad. "You're already too far in," she whispered. "I'm sorry." The phone stopped buzzing. For 3 days, Rowan avoided me. No texts, no eye contact on campus. It was like she'd vanished. Meanwhile, my phone escalated. Static voicemails, scratching sounds, whispers of my own memories. Then, the worst. Laughter in Rowan's voice, but layered like 2 or 3 versions speaking at once. By the 4th day, I broke. I called Rowan over and over until she finally answered. "Mara," she said, voice tired, "this only gets worse. Then help me, please, I don't know what to do." A long silence. "Come to my place tonight." Her apartment was off campus, near a row of shuttered storefronts. Snow fell in thin sheets under the street lamps as I walked up the stairs, heart pounding. She opened the door before I knocked. Inside, everything was strangely bare. No photos, no decor, no mirrors. "How long has this been happening to you?" I asked. Rowan closed the curtains. "Since I was 14. She told me things that made my skin crawl, calls that followed her across states, voices that knew her thoughts, sightings of herself in places she hadn't been. "It doesn't want to kill you," she said. "It wants you to surrender." To what? To not being alone. Her words burrowed under my skin. I thought of the breathing on the line, the whispers, the thing in my room. What do I do? Rowan stepped closer, placing her hands gently on my shoulders. "Whatever happens tonight, don't answer, no matter what you hear. Do you understand?" I nodded. We sat in silence, a single lamp casting dim amber light across the floor. At 2:59 a.m., the lamp flickered. My pulse roared in my ears. The room felt smaller, like the walls pressed inward. Then came the vibration. Rowan grabbed my hand. "Don't answer." The phone rang again, and again. I stared at it on the table, screen flashing like a heartbeat. Then it spoke. Not a whisper, not static. "Mara, open the door." Knocking followed. From Rowan's front door, loud, precise, in sets of 3. My blood ran cold. "Mara," the voice on the phone crooned. "I'm cold. Let me in." Rowan squeezed my hand. "Don't move." The knocking grew violent, rattling the frame. The voice on the phone turned pleading, then angry, then childlike. "Let me in, let me in, let me in." I covered my ears. Rowan shouted over the noise. "It's trying to split you. It needs you to choose it over me." Then suddenly, silence. No knocking, no ringing. My ears rang in the void that followed. Slowly, I lowered my hands. "Mara," Rowan whispered. "Look at me." I did, and my stomach dropped. Her eyes were wrong, reflective, wet, like the video. Her smile spread, slow, familiar. My phone lit up again. Incoming call. Rowan. The real Rowan. The one whose hand I was still holding. I stared at the screen, then at the Rowan in front of me. One of them spoke. "Don't answer." The other smiled wider. "Please, let me in." I don't know which Rowan is real anymore, and the phone is still ringing. I met her on a Monday evening while the rain turned Seattle into a blur of water and neon. "I'm Lena," she typed. Warm, casual, like she already knew I would respond. I can still remember how the notification glow lit my small apartment. How her first message made a room that usually felt too quiet suddenly feel alive. I told myself it was just a study group app, just another stranger, just another night. But I was lying. I was lonely, and she felt like a lifeline. We talked for hours that first night. Classes, parents, scars we hid from everyone else. I never open up that fast, but she had this strange pull like gravity. When she typed something funny, I could almost hear her laugh. When she typed something sad, I felt a bruise form somewhere under my ribs. It terrified me how quickly I needed her to reply, how often I checked my phone, how easily she slipped into the empty spaces of my life. After 3 days of nonstop messages, she asked to meet. We chose a cafe downtown, Slate and Ember on 3rd Ave. I watched the door, nursing a coffee I didn't even want, scared she wouldn't show. Then she walked in. Long dark hair, olive jacket, a small birthmark under her right eye. She spotted me immediately, smiled, and hugged me before I could react. Not a polite stranger hug, an "I missed you" hug. I should have been alarmed, but instead I melted into it. She was funny in person, softer, kind. She listened with her whole face, leaning in like every word I said mattered. We met again the next day, and the next. Not dates, not officially, but something close. I told myself I was just grateful for a friend. Then came the moment everything cracked. One night I was scrolling on my phone, missing her after she logged off, hungry to know more about her. So I searched her name. I found it on page 2 of the results, an obituary. My heart stuttered as I clicked it. Same name, same age, same birthmark under the eye. The obituary said she died 3 years ago in a house fire near Spokane. There was even a picture, her picture, smiling in sunlight, alive in a way that punched the air out of me. I stared at the screen for a long time, whispering, "No. No, no, no." I told myself it had to be a coincidence, a relative, someone who looked like her. But the photo, the birthmark, the eyes, it was her. The next day at Slate and Ember, my voice shook when I said, "I found something." She didn't look surprised. She sipped her coffee, watching my hands tremble. "Your obituary," I whispered. She didn't deny it, didn't laugh, didn't ask what I meant. She just looked at me through lashes too thick and still and said with a small, sad smile, "I told you I lost everything in the fire. A normal person would have left right then. A normal person would have run. But something about her, her calm, her softness, her certainty, froze me in place." She reached across the table, touched my wrist, and her fingers were cold. Not winter cold. Dead cold. That night I blocked her on the app. I deleted it. I changed my number. I told myself it was over, that she'd vanish, that I'd forget, but I underestimated how badly she wanted to stay. The messages began at 2:41 a.m., unknown number. Why'd you leave? Another. We were good together. Then, I'm still here. I'll always be here. I didn't respond. I turned off my phone. But in the morning, I woke to dozens of notifications, emails, new numbers, app invites, encrypted accounts I didn't recognize. She sent photos too. At first they were selfies, but then they changed. They were taken inside my apartment, my hallway, my couch, my kitchen sink, angles I'd never photographed. I tore apart my apartment looking for a camera, for a hole in the wall, for anything. Nothing. I barely slept that week. When I did, I dreamed of smoke, of coughing, of blackened walls, of her face emerging from flame. One night I woke to the smell of burning fabric and found a scorch mark on my bedroom curtain. Just a spot. Just a small circle, but it hadn't been there before. My friends told me I needed therapy, so I went. Trauma projection, my therapist said. You're lonely, vulnerable, and primed to attach. Your mind created a haunting to fill a void. I wanted to believe her. I tried. For days I repeated it like a spell. She's in my head. She's not real. I'm safe. But I wasn't safe. Because then came the coughing. At first it was faint, behind the walls, inside the vents. A soft, choking gasp that made me sit up in bed, heart clawing at my ribs. Then it grew louder, wet, ragged, desperate. I covered my ears, shaking, whispering, "Stop. Please stop." But it wouldn't. The next morning, soot streaked my bathroom floor. Small black footprints, shaped like bare feet. That night I bolted awake, sensing someone inches from my face. The room was dark, but I could feel her. The air smelled of burned wood and charred hair. I didn't move, I didn't breathe. Then a voice, her voice, whispered, "You made me feel alive again. Don't abandon me." I screamed and thrashed for the lamp. Light flooded the room. I was alone. But the smell remained. I broke down after that. Stopped going out. Stopped answering calls. I taped every vent, sealed every crack, left every light on. My therapist insisted it was psychosis. My friends insisted I move, but I wasn't hallucinating. I knew what I felt. I knew what I smelled. I knew what I heard. Still, I tried to act normal. I went grocery shopping. I did laundry. I washed dishes with shaking hands. That evening, while drying a plate, I caught a reflection in the window. Her face behind me, half-burned, smiling. When I spun around, there was only my empty kitchen. I dropped the plate. It shattered. That night I slept with the TV on, too afraid to close my eyes. At some point near dawn, exhaustion won. I don't know how long I was out, but I woke coughing, choking on thick gray air. Smoke filled my room, but there was no heat, no fire, just smoke. And through it, crouched beside my bed, was Lena, skin pale as ash, hair singed, fingers blistered and cracked. She stroked my hair. "It's your turn to stay," she whispered. I ran. I grabbed my keys and fled into the cold morning, lungs burning. I didn't stop until I reached my car. I locked the doors and sobbed until my throat gave out. I told myself I wouldn't go back. I told myself I'd find a hotel, a friend's couch, anywhere else. I told myself I'd choose life over madness. But when I looked up through tear-blurred eyes, I saw her reflection in the rearview mirror, sitting in the back seat, waiting, smiling, breathing smoke. I don't remember starting the car, but I remember the scream that tore out of me when I looked back and the seat was empty. I stumbled out, shaking, sucking cold air like a drowning woman tasting oxygen. People stared, but no one asked if I was okay. Seattle has a way of teaching people to mind their own ghosts. I ended up driving for hours, circling the waterfront, the overpasses, the slick streets near Pike Place, trying to outrun something that wasn't bound by roads. Eventually, with nowhere left to go, I made the worst choice I could have made. I went back home. The apartment was silent, stale, and still reeking faintly of smoke. I propped a chair under my bedroom doorknob, turned every light on, and sat on the floor with my back against the wall, gripping a kitchen knife like it meant something. I waited for night. When it came, I waited for her. Nothing. No coughing. No footsteps, no voice. No flicker in the glass. I stayed awake until sunrise, and for a moment I almost believed it was over. Maybe I'd imagined her. Maybe I was sick. Maybe my therapist was right. Then I opened my phone. A new message. No number, no icon. Just a single line. Check your mirror. My blood iced. I lifted my eyes slowly to the hallway mirror outside my bedroom. There I was, pale, sleepless, hollow-eyed, and behind me, inches away, was her, blackened skin. Burned lips? Watching me through the glass, not the room. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I just stared at my reflection, shaking, and then her burned hand lifted in the mirror and touched my shoulder, my reflection's shoulder, but I felt pressure. Gentle, claiming, familiar. I ran again. Hotel this time. 6th floor. Deadbolt. Chain lock. Chair against the handle. I left every lamp on and curled up on the bed, fully dressed, my ears straining for the sound of breathing that wasn't mine. At 3:07 a.m., the room phone rang. I knew who it was. Before I even touched it, I knew. My hand shook as I lifted the receiver. "Why do you keep leaving me?" she asked, voice soft as soot. I hung up. The phone rang again, and again, and again. I yanked the cord from the wall, the TV turned on by itself, static hissing. In the noise, a voice formed. "You belong with me." I covered my ears and screamed for it to stop. I don't know how long it lasted, but at some point exhaustion dragged me under. When I woke, sunlight filled the room. The TV was off. The phone was whole. Everything looked normal, except the soot handprint on the white bedsheet beside my head. I checked out without showering, without speaking, barely breathing. I went to the only place I hadn't gone yet, Spokane. If the haunting began with her death, maybe it could end at its source. The house from the obituary was still there, burned. Black-ribbed, half-collapsed, and fenced off. The air smelled of wet ash even years later. I stood in front of the ruin, rain soaking through my jacket, and whispered, "What do you want from me?" For a long moment, nothing. Then the wind shifted, carrying the faintest sound, coughing. Wet, ragged, familiar. I stumbled back, heart pounding, throat tight with panic. I didn't wait for more. I drove away, gripping the wheel so hard my fingers numbed. I returned to Seattle that night, hopeless. I didn't know what she wanted. I only knew she wouldn't stop. She didn't want closure. She wanted company. Days passed. My world shrank. I avoided mirrors. I unplugged electronics. I slept in daylight and sat awake through the night, listening for her. The coughing returned, this time from inside my closet. I pressed my back against the far wall, knees to my chest, whispering, "Please, please, please." The doorknob rattled once, twice, then stopped. Silence. I almost believed it was a bluff until I smelled the smoke, thick, heavy, filling my lungs. Flames bloomed across my bedroom wall, glowing, roaring, but giving off no heat. Just like before. And through the illusion of fire she stepped, her body flickering like old film, her eyes reflecting flames that weren't flames at all. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. She knelt in front of me, burned face inches from mine. "You made me feel alive," she whispered. "Now I'll make you feel what I felt." Her blistered hand touched my cheek, and suddenly I was choking. Smoke pouring into me, burning me from the inside out, heatless but agonizing. I clawed at my throat. She watched, almost lovingly. I don't remember collapsing. I don't remember blacking out. But I woke on the floor hours later, my throat raw, my chest aching, my skin smelling like burnt cloth. The fire was gone. She was gone. But I knew it wasn't over. I can feel her now as I write this. In the corner of the room, in the reflection of the black TV screen, in the dark glass of my window, waiting, watching, choosing her moment. I haven't slept in 3 days. I don't know what's real anymore. I only know this: she won't leave. She wants me the way a fire wants oxygen. Last night she whispered, "Breathe me in." And I did. Now the smoke is inside me. I cough and soot comes up dark on my palm. I see embers in the corner of my vision. I hear crackling when I blink. I think I'm becoming hers. If I disappear, if my apartment burns, if they find my face in an obituary photo someday, don't believe it was an accident. Because she's still lonely, and she always needs a friend. I joined Iron Pulse Fitness on 8th Street in Tacoma because I was tired of waking up feeling breakable. After the breakup with Tyler, I kept catching my reflection in windows and not recognizing the woman staring back. Hollow-eyed, shoulders, slumped, someone life happened to instead of someone who lived it. I wanted to feel sturdy again, solid, unshakable. So on a drizzly March morning, I pushed open the gym's glass doors and walked into the smell of metal, rubber mats, and eucalyptus cleaner, praying I could rebuild whatever was left of me. That's where I met Renee Voss. She was impossible to ignore. Tall, sculpted, a goddess of symmetry and controlled power. People greeted her with reverence, like she was the unofficial mayor of Iron Pulse. She caught me struggling with the laddie. Pull down on day 2. My arms trembling, my face burning with embarrassment. She stood behind me, rested a hand lightly on my shoulder and said, "You've got potential, Melissa. Don't waste it." My name on her tongue felt personal, intimate. I hadn't told her. I laughed awkwardly, but she didn't. Her eyes were flinty, assessing, like a jeweler examining a flawed stone. "I could train you," she said, "for free if you're serious." No one had offered me anything without wanting something in return. I said yes before I could think. The first sessions felt like salvation. She was attentive, patient, laser-focused. She mapped my posture with her fingertips, adjusted my stance, praised every improvement. Her voice was a soft command in my ear. Breathe. Push. Again. Good girl. She texted every morning at 5:45 a.m., "Rise. We build today." I lived for those texts. Within a month, my body changed. My mind changed. I could see muscles in my shoulders. I walked taller. I felt worthy. Renee celebrated each milestone with a proud, hungry smile, like she was sculpting me out of clay and loving the shape I took. Then she said it for the first time. "You're my project, Mel. I'm going to rebuild you from the inside out." I laughed. She didn't. Her presence seeped into the rest of my life. She meal prepped for me, containers of steamed vegetables and lean proteins stacked in my fridge without me asking. She replaced my coffee with supplements. She installed a sleep tracking app on my phone and demanded screenshots each morning. "Structure keeps you safe," she'd say, brushing a strand of hair from my face in a way that felt both affectionate and proprietary. When I tried eating with coworkers after a long shift, she scolded me. "Fast food is for people who don't respect themselves," she said. "Delete those numbers. They're holding you back." I did. I told myself it was discipline, that she cared, that she saw strength in me no one else ever had. But there were red flags I folded neatly and hid from myself, like how she memorized my schedule before I shared it, like how she knew what time I fell asleep, like how she said my weaknesses made her anxious, as though my body belonged to her nerves. One evening in the locker room, she plucked my phone from my hand mid-text and said, "You don't need distractions during training. I'll give it back after." When I hesitated, she smiled too wide. "Don't you trust me?" I heard my own voice answer, "Yes," before I decided to speak. She escalated slowly, skillfully. I wasn't allowed to lift with anyone else. If another trainer said hello, she slid between us, territorial and poised. "Most people want to use you or coddle you. I don't. I make you better." She said it like a vow. Over time, the gym became the only place that felt real. My world compressed: work, sleep, Iron Pulse, Renee. She curated everything: my calorie intake, my playlists, my clothes. "Black or gray only," she instructed. "No colors. You're not ready to be seen yet." I obeyed, but there were moments, brief, flickering, when I questioned her. One night I came home to find my living room rearranged. Couch moved, table angled differently. A note on my counter in her looping handwriting: "You're safer when I watch you. Trust the process." My spare key was missing. I confronted her the next morning, voice trembling. She didn't deny it. "Your environment fuels your habits," she said, like it was obvious. "You should thank me for protecting you." "But you can't just go into my apartment," I whispered. Her expression cooled. "Would you rather I stop caring?" The thought of losing her approval made my chest clench with panicked guilt. I backed down. She hugged me, and the air left my lungs in something like relief. I told myself she was intense because she believed in me, because she wanted me to succeed, because she was the only one who hadn't given up on me. Then came the special session. It was late, a storm raging outside, wind rattling the gym's metal siding. Renee said the best transformations happened when the world was asleep. She led me to a private training room in the back. The hallway was dark, lights motion-triggered and slow to wake. When the door sealed behind us with a heavy metallic click, I felt something in me shrink. She set down a black duffel bag filled with straps, athletic tape, and unfamiliar equipment. "Tonight," she murmured, "we break what's left of the weak version of you." My laugh came out thin. "That sounds intense." Her gaze pinned me. "Weakness is a choice. I'm taking choice away. After tonight, you'll be free." The room felt smaller, the air thicker. I backed up a step. "I don't want to do this." She advanced one step for mine. "Yes, you do. You just lack discipline." Her hand shot out to grab my wrist. I yanked away. Fear surged hot and electric through my chest. "Renee, stop." She didn't stop. "You still think you get to walk away?" she whispered. "I built you. I decide what you are now." I bolted for the door. She lunged, but her shoe slid across sweat-slick flooring, and she crashed to her knees with a snarl of pain and betrayal that didn't sound human. I didn't look back. I ran barefoot into the parking lot, rain needling my skin, gravel tearing my soles as her voice thundered after me. "Melissa, don't you dare waste what I made you." I didn't stop running. I quit Iron Pulse the next morning without stepping inside. I emailed the manager from a coffee shop and blocked every number I knew of hers. I changed my routine, my commute, my phone, even my hairstyle. I told myself I was starting over, but obsession is not undone by distance. On day 3, a package arrived with no return label. Inside, a tub of protein powder and a printed workout plan titled Phase 2, Obedience. I threw it away. On day 5, a new number texted, "You skipped leg day." I'm disappointed. I turned off my phone. On day 7, my building's hallway camera caught a tall figure in a black hoodie lingering outside my unit at 3:33 a.m. The timestamp glowed like an accusation. I stared at the still frame until my vision swam. Her posture was unmistakable. Renee didn't need to speak to control me anymore. My sleep crumbled into fragments. Every creak of my apartment made me jolt. I stopped opening blinds, stopped cooking, stopped singing to myself, stopped being a person. At work, I double-checked every reflection behind me. One evening, I found a note taped inside my fridge. Inside. My hands went cold and wooden as I read it. "I miss our midnight sessions. Let me in." I vomited in the sink. I bought new locks, then cameras, then pepper spray. My life became a fortress of paranoia. But fortresses don't keep you sane. They just give you walls to pace inside. The texts never stopped. "Strength requires surrender. You were better when I owned you. We don't quit." I jumped at every buzz, every knock, every footstep in the hallway. My heartbeat became a metronome for fear. One night, I dreamed of the gym. Fluorescent lights buzzing, mirrors warping my reflection into versions I didn't recognize. In the dream, Renee stood behind me, whispering in my ear, "You're nothing without my structure." When I woke, I found a resistance band coiled neatly on my kitchen counter. She had been inside again. Something snapped in me. I grabbed a duffel bag, stuffed it with clothes, and drove south until Washington became Oregon. I rented a cheap apartment under a shorter version of my name, M. Crane. I paid cash for everything. No trail, no trace. For a week, there was silence. On the 8th night, my phone, the new one, buzzed at 3:33 a.m. Good girl. Keep running. My scream stayed trapped in my throat. I stopped jogging. Stopped going outside after dark. Stopped trusting locks, windows, daylight, people. My world shrank again, but this time, not to Renee's design, to my own terror. Because now, I wasn't afraid she would control me. I was afraid she already had. Sometimes when I stand in front of the mirror, I still adjust my posture the way she taught me. Shoulders back, chin neutral, core tight. Sometimes I wake up at 5:45 a.m. without an alarm, expecting her text. Sometimes, when I pass a gym, my body aches for her approval before my mind can reject the thought. She didn't just invade my home. She rewired my reflexes. She branded my habits. She carved a version of herself into the architecture of my brain. And I let her. Tonight, as I write this, I can feel it happening again. My thoughts drifting toward her voice, the one that told me I was worth sculpting, worth saving, worth owning. There's a part of me, small, deranged, starving, that misses belonging to someone with a plan. Someone who looked at me and didn't see chaos. Someone who said, "I will make you strong." The knock just came. 3 soft taps on my apartment door. I check the peephole. Nothing. But I know she's there. Or will be. Or doesn't need to be. It no longer matters whether she's on the other side or inside my head, because obedience outlives the trainer. Because control survives the cage. Because I am still her project, and projects don't get to choose when they're finished. I moved into 402 Hillstone Drive on a warm May evening, with my hands still shaking from the life I had just burned down. Not literally, though sometimes I wished I had turned my past to ash. I kept replaying the moment I found Evan's message thread with her, how every "I love you" he sent me overlapped with one he sent someone else. I hated the pity in my sister's eyes when she said, "He'll hear as long as you need." I hated the unfamiliar version of myself who cried brushing her teeth, who slept in a borrowed blanket on a borrowed couch in a borrowed life. So when I signed the lease on Hillstone Drive, it wasn't hope I felt. It was desperation. I needed quiet. I needed anonymity. I needed to be someone no one could study, twist, or abandon. But on my very first night, someone was already watching me. She knocked at 8:14 p.m. I remember the exact minute because I had just collapsed on the couch, exhausted and hollow. When I opened the door, she stood there barefoot on my welcome mat, holding a warm pie dish with a linen towel draped over it. "I'm Callista. Next door. I thought I'd say hi before the world gets in the way." Her voice was gentle, melodic, with a confidence that made you feel chosen just by hearing it. She smelled faintly of jasmine and rain. Her dark hair fell in loose waves to her collarbone, and her eyes, gray, steady, unblinking, held mine a second too long. I forced a smile. She felt too much for a stranger, but I was too tired for instinct, too eager to feel welcomed by someone. Anyone. She didn't just step into my evening. She stepped into my empty spaces. We ate pie at my half-unpacked kitchen counter, and she asked the kind of questions close friends ask after years, not minutes. "What scares you most? Do you hate sleeping alone? If you could erase one memory, which one?" I should have laughed it off. I should have redirected. But loneliness loosens caution, and I kept answering. When she finally left, she gave me a lingering half-embrace, her cheek nearly touching mine. "Good night, Laura," she whispered, like she was tasting the syllables. Her text came at 11:03 p.m. "Sleep well, neighbor." Yellow heart. I stared at it too long before turning off my phone. Over the next few days, she appeared with uncanny timing, stepping out to check her mailbox the moment I pulled into the driveway, waving through her kitchen window whenever I opened my blinds, accidentally grabbing coffee at the same cafe before my shift on Ashwood Avenue. Each time she greeted me like we were already tethered. She remembered every detail I said, and details I didn't remember saying. Then one afternoon she brought me a gift, a small glass jar filled with cinnamon candies. The exact brand I used to buy from a corner store 7 blocks from my childhood home in Corvallis, a store I hadn't thought about in nearly 20 years. "I just knew you'd like these," she said. "I wanted to ask how, but I was afraid of what the answer might be." When she asked for a spare key just in case, I hesitated. She watched me too intently, her head tilted, her eyes full of a knowing softness that made refusal feel cruel. I caved. I told myself it was practical, new town, no family close by, and she hugged me like I'd given her something sacred. That night, the noises began. At first it was just floor creaks in the hallway. Harmless. Houses breathe. Then came the soft, deliberate footsteps. I would sit up in bed, pulse hammering, and stare at the crack beneath my door. Once I swore I saw a shadow pause there, waiting. I would open the door and find nothing, but the air would still feel occupied, as if someone had just slipped out of sight. When I mentioned it to Callista over tea, she reached across the table, took my wrist, and said, "If anything scares you, tell me. I'll handle it." Her thumb stroked the inside of my arm slowly, intimately, like we were something more than neighbors. I pulled back, and a flicker of disappointment crossed her face, sharp and childish, gone as quickly as it came. The escalation was gradual. Precision disguised as coincidence. She'd show up at the bus stop on mornings she shouldn't have known I was running late. She'd finish my sentences, too often to be funny. When I tried to make friends at work, she somehow appeared at the same bar after hours, sliding into my evening like she had a reservation. My friend Mara visited one Saturday, and after she left, Callista texted me, "She doesn't deserve you." The wording made my stomach twist. How did she hear anything? Mara and I had talked in my living room quietly, with my windows closed. That night I stayed up, lights off, listening. At 2:17 a.m., I heard it through the vent, soft breathing, too close to be accidental, slow, intentional, listening. I stepped backward until my shoulder hit the wall. The breathing stopped. Then after a long silence, a whisper drifted through the metal slats. "I'm here." I didn't sleep again until sunrise. I tried pulling away after that. Fewer replies, closed blinds, short answers, but she had a way of making distance feel like betrayal. If I didn't respond, she appeared on my porch. If I didn't answer the door, she texted, "I know you're home." If I didn't look at her window, she knocked on the wall we shared. 3 slow taps, rhythmic and patient. The breaking point came the night I returned home from a late shift. My door was unlocked. My stomach dropped. When I stepped inside, I froze. Callista was sitting on my living room floor in the dark, knees to her chest, holding a framed photograph of me and Evan, the one I kept hidden in a box inside my bedroom closet under a stack of clothes. Her fingers traced Evan's face in the picture, then mine, then his again. Her eyes were glowing in the sliver of streetlight cutting through the blinds. "You loved him," she murmured. "And look what it did to you." My voice barely worked. "Give that back." "He didn't deserve you," she said, her voice softening like a lullaby. "But don't worry. You'll never be alone again. I know you're scared to trust. I know you think you're unlovable unless someone chooses you. But I choose you. I'll always choose you," something in me snapped. "You need to leave, now." She stood slowly, clutching the photo. Her expression never changed, serene, composed, certain. "Why would you ask me to leave my own home?" she whispered. "It's not your home." Her smile sharpened just a fraction. "Of course it is. Wherever you are, I belong. We're not separate things." I backed toward the door, my hand shaking as I grabbed my keys. "I'm serious, Callista. Get out." She tilted her head again, studying my fear like it fascinated her. "You don't mean that. You're just frightened. It's okay. I forgive you." I bolted. I didn't pack. I didn't breathe. I just ran. By midnight, I was checked into a motel 3 towns over, shaking in a room that smelled like bleach and cigarette ghosts. I told myself I was safe now, that distance mattered, that doors and roads and miles could still protect a person. But at 3:11 a.m., someone knocked on my motel door. 3 slow taps. Then my name, whispered through the crack, "Good night, Laura." I left before sunrise. I drove until the highway blurred and the radio buzzed through static. I picked a new town at random, paid cash for a different motel, and threw myself onto the stiff mattress with the curtains taped shut. Exhaustion dragged at my bones, but I couldn't sleep. Not with the echo of that knock repeating in my skull. Not with her whisper braided into my thoughts like a second internal voice. Every sound became a threat. Every silence became worse. By the second day, the fear sharpened into paranoia. I checked the peephole every hour. I unplugged the vent cover. I pushed the dresser in front of the door. I left the TV on for noise, trying to drown out memory. But she didn't need to enter a room to occupy it. She was in the rhythm of my breathing, in the stray thoughts that didn't feel like mine anymore. On the third night, the motel phone rang. My heart seized. I let it ring until it stopped. 5 minutes later, it rang again. I picked up with trembling fingers. I forced out a hello. No one answered, but I could hear it, the quiet inhale. The steady presence, the awareness on the other end. I hung up and pressed my palms to my eyes until I saw sparks of color. I couldn't keep doing this. I needed help. Not just police help, but sanity help. Someone who could ground me in reality, or at least tell me whether mine was slipping through my fingers. Mara was the only person I trusted enough to call. At 6:40 a.m., I finally dialed. She answered on the second ring. "Laura, Jesus, where have you—" "I need you," I whispered. "Please." When I told her I felt hunted, not stalked, not harassed, but claimed, she didn't laugh. She didn't accuse me of being irrational or dramatic. She just said, "Send me the address. I'll come." Those words cracked something open in me. Gratitude, relief, hope. Hope is dangerous. Mara arrived that evening with takeout food and puffy eyes. She hugged me tight and I nearly collapsed into her. I hadn't realized how starved I was for a human touch that didn't feel like ownership. "You're safe," she said into my hair. "I've got you. We'll figure this out." For a moment, I believed her. We ate on the bed and I told her everything, every detail, every whisper, every knock. She listened, growing more disturbed by the minute. "Laura, that's not normal." "She's not normal. This is obsession on a different level." She squeezed my hand. "We're going to the police tomorrow. Real police. Not small-town rent-a-cops. You shouldn't be handling this alone." I nodded. But later that night, while I was brushing my teeth in the bathroom, I heard Mara's voice through the motel wall, not speaking, crying. Shaking, I pressed my ear to the wallpaper. At first I thought she was on the phone, but then I heard another voice with hers, Callista's, low, rhythmic, whispering, my blood iced. I stumbled back, knocking over a plastic cup. I ran to the main room. Mara was gone. The door was dead-bolted from the inside. Her phone was still on the bed. I pressed my fist to my mouth to keep from screaming. I checked the bathroom, the closet, under the bed, behind the curtains. Nothing. She had vanished from a locked room. I backed into a corner, curling in on myself, shaking. My mind raced in circles until the walls pulsed. I don't know how long I sat there, minutes, hours, before exhaustion dragged me into a shallow, broken sleep. I dreamed of vents, of gray eyes staring through them. When I woke, the silence was suffocating. Morning light bled through the curtain seams, sickly and indifferent. I checked the door again. Still bolted. Mara's phone still face down on the bed. But something had changed in the room. On the nightstand, beneath the motel's laminated room service menu, was a single cinnamon candy, not a jar, just one. My hands went cold. There was a note under it, written in my handwriting, "Stop running. I'm here." That's when I finally understood. Distance doesn't matter when someone doesn't live outside you anymore. I packed again. Not carefully, not fully. I threw clothes into my bag, left everything else and ran. I didn't look back at the motel door. I didn't check out. I didn't breathe until the interstate swallowed me. Now I'm in another city, another nameless motel, another room that smells like disinfectant and endings. I don't bother unpacking anymore. I don't tape the curtains. I don't push furniture against doors. I used to think safety was something you built around yourself. Now I know the truth. Danger is something that moves into you. The worst part isn't the knocks anymore, or the vents, or the phone calls. It's the quiet. The perfect, obedient quiet before she surfaces again, before she whispers a thought I haven't spoken yet, before she finishes a sentence I never said aloud, because she isn't outside the door now. She's in the pauses between my thoughts. When I'm tired, I feel her guiding my memories. When I'm lonely, I feel her smoothing over the edges of my fear. When I try to think about tomorrow, her voice arrives first, choosing the words. I don't sleep. I don't dream. I don't get to be alone in my own head. That was always her goal. Not to stand beside me, but to replace the part of me that resisted. I don't know what she is. I only know what she wants. Not my life. Just my mind. If someone finds this, don't look for me. Don't try to help. Don't comfort me with promises of police or locks or miles. I am past saving and I can feel her now, forming my final thought before I've even chosen it. Some friendships don't end. They consume. I'm not writing the next sentence, she is. I used to love mirrors. I loved the way they made small rooms look bigger, how the light doubled and glittered in old dorm bathrooms, how my reflection grounded me on days I felt invisible. I never imagined I'd end up taping towels and blankets over every reflective surface I owned, living like prey in my own room, afraid of something that looks exactly like me. My name is Elena Moore, freshman at Blackwood University in Portland, Maine, room 3B of Blackwood Dormitory, and I know how insane my story sounds. If you had told me 2 months ago that I'd be afraid of my own reflection, I'd have laughed. But the night I met Marisa changed everything, or maybe it just revealed what was already staring back at me. The first time I saw her was on a rainy October night, the kind of cold, wet New England rain that seeps through your clothes and bones. I was brushing my teeth in the shared girls' bathroom, flickering fluorescent lights, old tile, cracked mirrors above each sink, when she stepped in beside me. Pale skin, dark hair, quiet smile. Her voice was soft when she said, "I'm Marisa." I don't know why, but her presence calmed me. We talked for 20 minutes that first night, laughing about dorm gossip and terrible cafeteria food. She felt familiar immediately, like someone I'd known years instead of minutes. I noticed right away she never glanced at her own reflection. Not once. I thought it was insecurity. I understood that. I didn't pry. Over the next week, she and I kept meeting, always in the bathroom, always near mirrors. We never hung out in my room, never in hers, never at cafes or common areas. She avoided group photos. She flinched when I joked about taking selfies. Any time a screen or mirror faced her, she shifted, angling away as if the glass burned. I thought she was just shy, and I was lonely enough not to question anything that felt like friendship. Then the first message arrived. It was 1:13 a.m. on a Wednesday. I woke to my phone buzzing. A text from an unknown number, a photo, my room, my bed, me asleep, taken from only a few feet away. I sat up instantly, heart slamming in my ribcage. I checked the closet, the hallway, under the bed. The door was dead-bolted. No one was there. Another buzz, a second photo, closer, my face on the pillow. I typed, "Who is this?" No response. I barely slept. The next morning, dark circles under my eyes, I ran into Marisa in the bathroom. Her voice was calm, too calm when I told her about the pictures. She watched me through the mirror, but never at her reflection. And she said, "If you saw who sent them, you wouldn't sleep again." I tried to laugh it off, but a cold, spreading dread took root in me. Days passed. More messages. More photos. Always at 1:13 a.m. Always from inside my room. Once a picture of the hallway outside my door. Once a shot of my feet dangling from my bed, blanket pulled down like someone had been there watching. I stopped telling myself it was a prank. The next shift happened in the bathroom a week later. I was sitting beside Marisa on the long wooden bench near the sinks. We met there every night like ritual, when something felt off. I was talking. She was listening. But in the mirror above us, I saw something that froze the air in my lungs. Her reflection was texting on my phone, but her real hands were still in her lap. I stared. I couldn't breathe. The mirror hands moved, typing faster, thumbs a blur. I whispered, "Marisa." Her real eyes widened, not predator-wide, but terrified. She leaned in and whispered back, "It's not me. It's her." Before I could ask who she meant, my phone buzzed in my pocket. The message preview on my lock screen read, "I like this life. I want it." My knees nearly gave out. I backed away from the mirror, shaking. When I looked up again, the reflection no longer showed her texting. It showed us both sitting still as if nothing had happened. But I knew what I saw. I knew. I avoided mirrors for a full day after that, but in a dorm, reflections are everywhere. Windows, elevator doors, polished tile, phone screens. You don't realize how many surfaces can hold you until you're afraid of them. The following night was when reality truly broke. I walked into the bathroom. Marisa wasn't there. The room felt colder than usual, lights buzzing angrily overhead. I approached the sinks and my reflection didn't move with me. It just watched. A half-second delay at first, then a full second. Then as I froze in horror, it smiled without me smiling. I stumbled back, my body trembling. My reflection raised its hand and pressed its palm to the glass. I did not move, its mouth formed words I couldn't hear. Then my phone vibrated. A text from the same unknown number let me in. I ran. I don't even remember crossing the hall to my room. I blocked the mirror with a blanket, turned my phone face down, crawled into bed and cried silently until morning. I told myself I imagined it. Stress, sleep deprivation, loneliness. College isolation can play tricks on your head. I tried to believe that, but the messages kept coming. Every night at 1:13 a.m., never earlier, never later. Each new photo had one thing in common. My reflection was always smiling, even when I wasn't, as if something inside the glass was delighted. When I stopped looking at the pictures, the messages changed. They became words, simple ones at first. Look, wake up, let me in. We already look the same. By Halloween, I covered every reflective surface in my room. Mirrors, phone, laptop screen, even the metal on my desk lamp. My roommate thought I was having a breakdown. Maybe I was. The last time I saw Marisa in person was November 2nd. She sat beside me in the bathroom, hands clasped, eyes hollow. I tried to warn you, she whispered. I asked her what was happening, who she really was, what was in the mirrors. She didn't answer. She only said, "Don't go back there tonight." Then she stood, walked out, and never came back to the dorm bathroom again. That night, at 1:13 a.m., my phone buzzed beneath my pillow. Against my better judgment, I looked a photo, not of me, of Marisa in the bathroom, staring into the mirror with my reflection behind her, smiling wide. And that was the moment I knew this thing didn't just want to watch. It wanted out. It wanted my life. I barely slept after that. My breath shook. My skin buzzed with dread. I waited for morning like a prisoner waits for a key. When sunlight finally seeped through the window blinds, I thought maybe I was safe. Nothing ever happened in daylight. That became my only comfort, but I knew I couldn't keep living like this. So I did something desperate. I asked the dorm RA if she knew which room was Marisa's. The RA frowned. "There's no Marisa on this floor," she told me. "No," I insisted. "She's in the bathroom every night. Long dark hair, pale, quiet. Room on this hall." The RA shook her head. "We don't have a resident by that name anywhere in the building." The world tilted beneath me. I felt suddenly unmoored, like the floor wasn't real anymore. I stumbled back to my room, heart pounding so violently it hurt. By nightfall, panic had curdled into terror. At 1:13 a.m., the buzzing started again. This time, multiple messages, one after another, rapid, relentless, like fists banging on a door. "Let me in. Let me in. Let me in. Let me in." I threw the phone against the wall. Seconds later, it buzzed again. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers, even if they destroyed me. So I made the single worst decision of my life. I uncovered the mirror, just one. The big rectangular one above the sink in our dorm bathroom. I told myself I'd just look, just once, just to prove I still existed on the right side of the glass. At 1:12 a.m., I stood in front of it. At 1:13, the lights flickered and she was there. Not beside me, not behind me, in me. My reflection blinked, but I hadn't. My reflection smiled, but my lips were still. Then she lifted her hand, slow and taunting, pressing her palm to the inside surface of the mirror. My breath hitched, fogging the glass on my side. For a long, trembling moment, I stared at her. My heartbeat echoed in my ears like a drum underwater. Then she mouthed the words, "Trade." I whispered, barely audible, "No." The smile sharpened. She placed her other hand on the glass and pushed. The mirror bowed inward, like it was soft, like it had depth, like she could step through if she just pressed hard enough. I stumbled backward, knocking over a trash bin. The lights blew out, plunging the bathroom into darkness. The sound that followed was the most horrifying thing I've ever heard. Knuckles tapping the glass from the inside. Tap, tap, tap. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Hands shaking, I lifted it. A live photo of me standing in the bathroom. But in the picture, I was smiling. I ran again out of the bathroom, down the hall, back to my room where my roommate slept undisturbed. I slammed the door, slid down it, and sobbed until my throat burned. I covered every mirror again, but it didn't matter anymore. I had looked. She knew I saw her. She wasn't just mimicking me. She was studying me, learning me, becoming me. The next morning, I withdrew from classes. Told my professors I needed medical leave. Told my parents I wasn't okay. None of them understood, not really. How could they? I didn't tell them what I'd seen. I just packed. I was going to leave the dorm by nightfall, but she didn't wait for nightfall. At 4:17 p.m., broad daylight, I passed a hallway mirror on the first floor near the vending machines. It was unavoidable, full wall, polished bright. I kept my eyes down and walked fast, but from the corner of my vision I saw it. My reflection stopped walking. I did not. My body froze mid-stride. I turned slowly against every instinct I had left. She stood there behind the glass. My face, my body, but wrong. Eyes too bright, smile too knowing. Wrong. She lifted her hand again, slow and deliberate, placing her palm to the mirror, and my phone buzzed, "Don't run. It's my turn." I bolted outside, lungs burning from the cold November air. I sat on the concrete steps of Blackwood dorm and cried in the open, ignoring stares from passing students. I didn't care how I looked. I just needed to breathe, to think, to exist in a world without glass. That night I refused to go back inside. I sat in the common lounge with lights on and no mirrors. I waited until sunrise, and when morning came I forced myself to believe the worst had passed. She hadn't crossed over, not yet. Not completely, but something changed after that day. The messages stopped being threats, they became promises. Soon, almost, I'm close, and then the last one, "You're tired, let me live." That night, exhausted and numb, I dreamed of her. I dreamed of a massive dark mirror, stretching floor to ceiling. My reflection pressed her forehead to the glass, whispering, "You don't have to fight anymore, just rest. I can take it from here." When I woke, I felt disoriented, blurred, disconnected from my own hands, my own breath, like I wasn't anchored fully inside my body anymore. I knew then I couldn't outrun her. Mirrors are everywhere. You can leave a dorm, a city, a state, but you can't leave your own reflection. Wherever there is glass, she has a doorway. I'm writing this now in a motel outside Portland. Tiny room, no decor. One lamp, one bed, one mirror, which I smashed the minute I walked in. The owner will charge me for it. I don't care. My phone sits on the bedside table, screen cracked from where I threw it. I turned it face down hours ago, but just now as I write this, it buzzed. The message preview glows up at me from the darkness. I can see you. The glass was never the door. My breath stops. You are the door. My hand is shaking as I type this next part, because I can feel it. Something watching, smiling just beneath the surface of my skin, like a second heartbeat under mine, like she's already halfway through, and I don't think I'll be able to stop her much longer. The blankets covering the motel TV are starting to slide. The black surface underneath reflects just a sliver of my face. Only, I'm not smiling. She is, and she's mouthing one word, over and over and over, "Finally. If someone finds this, smash every mirror before you look." Do not trust your reflection. Do not look when it smiles. Do not answer when it texts, because once she chooses you, there is no leaving. You stop being the one in the mirror, and you become the one on the other side. I met Celine during orientation week at Redwood State University, on a morning that still smelled like possibility. Sun-warmed eucalyptus, wet pavement, and burnt espresso drifting from the student union. I remember thinking everything in my life might finally change. I just didn't know how violently it would. The first time I saw her, she was leaning back on the campus lawn like she'd been placed there. Perfect posture, glossy dark hair, sunglasses pushed up on her head, a quiet confidence that made people orbit her. She laughed at something a guy said. then turned her head and caught me staring. And instead of looking away, she smiled. Right at me. It felt like being chosen. We met officially an hour later when the group icebreakers began. "I'm Mara, psychology freshman," I said, doing the awkward wave. Celine went next. "Celine Vale, communications." Her voice was warm, low, and self-assured, like someone who already knew who she was. When she sat beside me instead of next to the extroverted girl in bright red lipstick everyone else was gravitating toward, I felt a strange spark of pride. I was the quiet friend, the dependable friend. Never the first choice, but Celine chose me. Within days, we were inseparable, late-night mozzarella sticks at Rossi Hall talking until 3 a.m., walking shoulder to shoulder between classes like we'd been doing it for years. Celine had that rare ability to make attention feel like affection. When she looked at you, really looked. You felt seen, known, wanted, and I had never realized how starved I was for that. She started gently. Comments slipped between casual breaths. "Why does your friend Amber always talk over you? Do you notice Liam only texts you when he needs something?" At first I defended them, but doubt spreads fast when you already fear you're forgettable. Soon the group chats muted, the lunches skipped, the excuses made. Celine would tilt her head sympathetically, poor Mara, surrounded by people who never valued her, and by October, she was the only one I truly spoke to. If that were the whole story, maybe nothing would have broken in me, but it didn't stop there. The first accident happened in November. A classmate of mine, Karina, who'd once joked that Celine seemed too intense, came out to the parking lot to find 3 deep slashes across her driver's side tires. Everyone gasped. Karina cried. I remember glancing at Celine. She was comforting another student, hand on their shoulder, but her eyes flicked to mine and she smiled. Small, knowing. I told myself it was coincidence. Then came Evan, a guy from my math lecture who'd tried to ask me out before Celine. He ended up hospitalized after drinking from a bottle in his dorm fridge that, according to campus security, had been contaminated with bleach. They labeled it a prank gone wrong. But when I told Celine how horrified I was, she hugged me, whispering into my hair, "Some people poison our lives long before their karma catches up." Her fingers lingered at the back of my neck, cold. I remember pulling away, unsettled, but she only smiled like we shared an inside joke. My world shrank. My phone, once buzzing, was silent. My parents complained I never called. I told them I was just busy, but the truth was uglier. Connection had begun to feel like betrayal because Celine made every other bond seem counterfeit. She fed my insecurities the way others feed pets, regularly, affectionately, so I stayed close. One night, I returned to our dorm room and found her sitting cross-legged on my bed wearing my sweatshirt. My journal lay open on her lap. I froze in the doorway. "Celine, why are you reading that?" She didn't flinch. She kept her finger on a page, tracing my words like grooves she intended to memorize. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "The way you feel things. You don't give yourself enough credit. That's private. But I already know you," she said, patting the mattress. "More than anyone ever has. You wrote that yourself." Something in her tone made the air feel thinner. I snatched the journal away and hugged it to my chest. She didn't apologize. Instead, she stood, stepped close, too close, her forehead nearly touching mine. "I chose you, Mara. Don't forget that." I didn't sleep much afterward. By winter break, Celine was spending more time in my clothes than her own. She borrowed my boots, my rings, even tied her hair in the same messy half-bun I always wore. It might have been funny if it hadn't been constant. One morning I left for class and someone said, "Hey, Mara." From behind me, I turned and saw Celine, wearing my exact outfit from the day before. Same jeans, same pale green cardigan, same silver pendant necklace. I laughed it off, but my stomach twisted. She met my stare and grinned. "We're mirrors now," she said. "Isn't that what best friends are?" The next week, my ex's dog was found dead on his porch. The details spread in panicked whispers, blood pooling on concrete, eyes open and glassy. I vomited in the dorm bathroom when I heard. Celine rubbed my back, cooing in that soft, hypnotic voice. "He hurt you. The universe balances things, Mara, even if it has to use people to do it." That's when I realized she wasn't sharing my life. She was consuming it. The true breaking point came in late February. I walked in from a night study session and found her standing in front of my mirror, whispering. Not practicing lines. Not talking on the phone. Whispering as me. "My name is Mara Hale," she whispered. "My favorite drink is a black iced latte. I hate elevators. My mom calls too much. I wish I was braver." She said it in my cadence. My exact pacing. My voice, "Selene." My voice cracked. She turned slowly, a smile blooming, too wide, too calm. "I'm just practicing." "For what?" "To be you." I laughed, brittle. "That's not funny." "Who's joking?" she asked. That night I pushed my dresser against my door and slept with the light on. I tried to create space. I ate alone. I made excuses. I even texted Amber again, testing the waters. But Celine noticed everything. When she confronted me, her expression wasn't hurt. It was offended, like I was property straying off leash. "You don't need anyone but me," she said. "I need my own life," I snapped. "You're weak in your own life," she replied calmly. "Let me fix it, fix me." Fix us. That was the moment I knew I had to escape her. But by then she'd already gotten inside my habits, my routines, my relationships, what few remained. I told myself I'd cut ties after spring break. Block her number. Move dorms. Start fresh, it was a plan. But it was too late, because the morning before break I woke to notifications, posts, pictures, messages from my own account. Photos of Celine wearing my clothes, sitting in my favorite cafe spot, captioned with my voice. People commented like nothing was wrong. Some even wrote, "You look amazing, Mara." And that was the first moment I felt it. The dread that she could replace me and the world might let her. I didn't go to class that day. I sat on my dorm floor, knees pulled tight, scrolling through post after post that I didn't write, comments I didn't make, invitations I didn't send. Celine had duplicated my existence online with eerie perfection. Same emojis, same phrasing, same humor. It was like watching someone steal the shape of my shadow. She walked in around noon humming. The sound made my skin crawl. "Why are you sitting on the floor?" she asked lightly, kicking off my boots. My boots, which she now wore more than I did. "You're posting as me," I said, voice trembling. "Delete it." "But I'm better at being you," she replied, confused at my anger, like I was the one behaving irrationally. "Look at the engagement. People love this version," I stared at her. "You can't just take my life." She knelt in front of me, eyes soft, voice gentle. "Mara, you weren't living it. You were surviving it. Let me carry it for a while." I stood abruptly, heart pounding. "Get out." She didn't move. "Get out." Slowly she rose, studying my face like she was memorizing it pixel by pixel. Then she smiled, not warm, not friendly, just certain. "You don't get to erase me," she whispered. When she finally left, I locked the door and called my mom. The moment I heard her voice, I broke. I told her everything, well, most of it. The isolation, the controlling behavior, the obsession, not the dog, not the bleach, not the voice in the mirror. I needed her to believe me, not institutionalize me. "Mara," she said gently, "this girl sounds unstable. Go to the dean. Go to housing. We'll get you a new roommate. Come home if you need to." Her certainty steadied me. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I wasn't drowning alone. I packed a suitcase. I planned to leave first thing in the morning, but Celine didn't wait for morning. Around 2:40 a.m., I woke to soft footsteps and the unmistakable click of my door unlocking. I sat up, frozen as my dresser, my barrier, slid an inch across the wood floor. Then again, like someone was gently, patiently pushing. I couldn't breathe. The dresser scraped just enough for the door to crack open. Celine's eye appeared in the sliver of darkness. "Mara," she whispered, voice syrup smooth, "let me in. I hate when you shut me out." I lunged forward and shoved the dresser back with my full weight. The impact jolted through my arms. Her voice remained calm. "You're overreacting. You always overreact. That's why you need me." I stayed pressed against the wood all night, waiting for daylight. She stopped pushing eventually, but she never left the hallway. I heard her breathe through the crack, slow, patient, awake until dawn. As soon as it was light, I went to housing services. I expected disbelief, maybe an eye roll. Instead, the secretary frowned, typed something, then looked up at me with confusion. "You don't have a roommate registered," she said. "What?" "Yes, I do. Celine Vale, communications major." The woman shook her head. "You've been in a single since September. My scalp prickled. That's impossible. She lives with me. No, the secretary said, voice firm now. There is no Celine Vale in our student system. Not in housing. Not in enrollment. I left shaking, stomach hollow, ears ringing. I tried to look her up. No student ID. No class roster. No club directory. No digital footprint except the things she'd posted as me. It didn't make sense. None of it made sense. Back at the dorm, her things were gone. Every sweater. Every notebook. Every trace that she had ever lived there. Except she was still on campus. I saw her that afternoon across the quad. And here's the part I can't explain. 2 girls walked past her, smiled, and said, "Hey, Mara." They were looking at her, not me. I ran. That night I checked my student portal, locked out. Password changed. Security questions different. My email hacked. Social media? Gone. Phone? Flooded with messages addressed to Celine, but sent to me. I wasn't the Mara people saw anymore. I went to report identity theft, but the officer on duty asked for ID. I handed it over with shaking fingers. He studied my license, then the database, then me. His expression tightened. "Ma'am, this license is flagged as inactive. Do you have current identification?" My mouth went dry. "That is my ID." "I'm going to need you to step aside." I ran again before he could finish. By April, I wasn't Mara in any official system. My dorm access card stopped working. I slept on benches, in empty classrooms, in bathrooms. I watched my own life continue without me. Celine wore my clothes, used my name, laughed with my old classmates, took photos with my parents when they visited campus for a surprise weekend. I saw the picture online, my mother hugging her, smiling. Caption, "Family time." They didn't even look confused, not even a little. I tried calling, but my mom's number blocked me. Or maybe she just truly believed I was the imposter now. My reflection even began to feel wrong. Not changed, just less certain. Like the face staring back might fade if I looked too long. The last time I confronted Celine was in late May. I cornered her behind the library, heart rabid in my chest. "Give me my life back," I said. She tilted her head, eyes shining with something bottomless. Not madness. Not cruelty, possession. "I didn't steal it," she whispered. "You abandoned it. I just stepped in before it rotted." "That's not yours to decide." She leaned in, lips at my ear. "You don't deserve your life. You're weak. I will live it better." Then she walked away, leaving me trembling, invisible in my own world. Now I write this from a borrowed laptop in the corner of a 24-hour laundromat miles from campus. I don't exist on paper. I'm a ghost with a heartbeat. And all I can think is this. I don't know what Celine truly is, a psychopath, a parasite, or something ancient that wears identities like clothes and discards the stretched out ones. But I can feel it. I'm thinning, fading, becoming the shadow she always assumed I was. Tonight I'm going back to campus, to my old dorm, to what used to be my life. If I can't take it back, I'll make sure she can't wear it anymore. Whatever she is, she can't replace me if I'm still here, right? Right? I met her on a fog-heavy Monday morning at Ravenwood High. And from the moment she sat beside me in that empty desk, I felt something in my life shift, subtle but irreversible, like a floorboard giving way under my feet. The halls reeked of floor wax and anxiety, and my head swam from the meds. The breakdown had severed me from everyone. The pills were supposed to rebuild the connection, but they only left my mornings thick and heavy, isolating me further. But she made me feel solid again. When she slipped into the desk next to mine, tall, pale, ink-black hair and a shy half-smile, I felt noticed for the first time in months. "I'm Elise," she whispered during roll call, her voice soft as chalk dust. She laughed at my sarcasm in a way that didn't feel pitying or performative. She walked with me to lunch. She asked what music I liked, then actually listened to the answer. I don't connect with people easily anymore. Not after the nurses, the locked ward, the fluorescent lights that hummed through my skull. But she slid into my life like she'd always belonged there. For a week, I told myself I finally had a real friend again, someone who didn't look at me like a cracked mirror. Then Friday morning came and the desk beside me was empty. When Mr. Carter called attendance, I raised my hand. "Where's Elise?" He frowned at his sheet. "Who?" The class snickered. Confusion burned through me. After the bell, I checked the roster on his desk. No Elise, no girl with her last name, no one absent. I felt heat crawl up my neck. I grabbed Ava by the lockers. "Where's Elise?" "You saw her. She sat next to me." Ava blinked. "Lily, no one sits there." I hated the way her voice softened. I hated the cautious pity in her eyes. That afternoon I slammed my locker shut, and Elise stood right there smiling like nothing had happened. "You disappeared," I whispered. She tilted her head. I was here. I touched her arm, desperate for grounding, and froze. She was cold. Not winter cold, not AC cold, grave cold. My breath hitched. Students pushed through the hall, brushing past us, except they never touched her. They never stepped aside. It was like the world simply failed to register her mass. "Elise," I breathed, "what are you?" She only smiled, brittle and desperate. "Please don't stop seeing me." That night she appeared on the curb outside my house, knees pulled to her chest under the street lamp, humming a tune I didn't recognize. I watched from behind my blinds, heart pounding. She didn't move, didn't blink, didn't shiver. The fog pooled around her like she wasn't even displacing air. I told myself it was a stress-induced hallucination, a backslide, a relapse. I took my meds early and crawled into bed, but when I closed my eyes, I saw her sitting in the corner of my room, faint as dust, humming softly. By Monday, she wasn't just at school. She was everywhere, in reflections behind me, in the glass of the trophy case, in the dark smear between blinks. I tried to ignore her. I tried to lose her in crowds, but she'd appear by my locker, smiling that small, shy smile that now felt like a knife. "If I fade," she whispered once, voice shaking, "I disappear for good. And I'm not leaving alone." My mind strained against itself. I didn't want to believe she was real. I didn't want to believe she wasn't. Sleep became something jagged and dangerous. Every time my eyes drifted shut, I heard that melody, soft, pleading, invasive. My grades slid. My hands shook. My therapist asked if I was staying present. I lied and said yes. One night at 2:11 a.m., I woke to a classroom sound that did not belong in my bedroom, the wooden scrape of a desk chair. My blood iced. I turned my head, dread coiling through my spine. There she was, Elise, sitting in the same posture she used in history, in a chair that wasn't in my room, staring at me with hollow patience. My voice came out a splinter. "Why are you doing this?" She blinked, slow and mournful. "Because you saw me." "Nobody sees me. Not anymore. I never chose you," I whispered, her voice sharpened, cracking like ice. "You did. That first day you chose me. You looked at me and your mind opened a door. Now that I'm inside," she leaned forward, eyes bottomless, hungry. "I am the foundation." I pulled my blanket to my chin like a child, trembling. She leaned in just a breath closer. "Stop seeing me," she whispered. "Go on. Try." Then she began to fade. First her hands, then her hair, then her face, until the corner was empty again. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Over the next week, she deteriorated. Not vanished, rotted. Her once glowing skin dulled to ash. Her eyes sank into dark hollows, hungry and endless. The more I tried to ignore her, the more monstrous she became, like my denial starved her, twisted her. Every hour, her edges bled into the air, her pale skin turning dull and ashen, her eyes sinking deeper into a bottomless, ravenous dark. And all the while she watched me, unblinking, waiting for my gaze to land on her so she could rebuild. I stopped looking at mirrors. I stopped walking near windows. But I could feel her breathing against the back of my neck, humming in vents, sitting in that empty desk in my peripheral vision, waiting for me to acknowledge her again. And I knew, the very moment I looked her in the eyes again, I was hers. By Thursday, my thoughts felt frayed, scraped raw by her constant closeness. I skipped school and sat on my bedroom floor, back against the wall, knees to my chest, whispering, "She's not real. She's not real. She's not real." But the house creaked in response, as though disagreeing, as though settling under the weight of someone unseen. The second night I tried to avoid her, she escalated. At 3:02 a.m., my doorknob turned, slowly, deliberately. I held my breath. The door opened inch by inch, and I heard soft footsteps cross my room. I squeezed my eyes shut. I knew if I opened them, I'd see her face inches from mine, hollow and expectant. Lily. Her voice trembled. If I vanish inside you. I snapped my eyes open despite myself, and she was there, crouched beside me on the floor, fingers digging into the carpet though they didn't bend the fibers. Her form flickered, unstable, like she was glitching through reality. I choked on my breath. Please, she whispered. And for a split second she didn't look monstrous, she looked terrified. Don't let me disappear. I don't want the dark again. I don't want to be alone. My throat tightened. What are you? She swallowed hard, as though mimicking a human gesture. A memory someone refused to keep. A story someone erased. I found space in you, but if you stop seeing me, I go back to nothing. I shook my head. I can't do this. I can't live like this. She leaned forward, forehead nearly touching mine. Then don't live without me. I shoved myself up and stumbled out of the room. I ran, barefoot, half blind with panic, into the cold night air, sprinting down the street, fog swallowing me whole. I didn't know where I was going. I only knew I needed space, distance, proof I still existed without her shadow overlapping mine. But the street lamps buzzed. The asphalt rippled, and every few yards I saw her standing under the glow, unmoving, waiting, like the road bent around her. By dawn, I understood there was no way. I returned home hollow, shaking, and crawled into bed, pressing my face into the pillow like I could smother the world out. I didn't open my eyes again until my mom knocked, asking if I was sick. I told her I had a migraine. She believed me. She always believes the clean lies, never the bloody ones. That night, Elise appeared again, this time at my desk, fingers tapping the wood in that soft rhythm I once found soothing. I stared at the wall, refusing to acknowledge her presence. Minutes passed. Then an hour, then 2. The room grew colder. Finally, she spoke. If I vanish, I disappear inside you, and I will drag pieces of you with me. My resolve cracked. I turned my head, her eyes locked onto mine. And in that instant, the room fell away. I saw flashes, not memories, but impressions. Hallways I'd never walked, faces I'd never met, a classroom in another decade, another city, another life, a girl sitting alone, a desk, a familiar melody hummed through time. Then darkness, heavy, suffocating, eternal. She hadn't always been haunting me. She had haunted others, and each one had eventually stopped seeing her, which meant each time, she had fallen into them as she vanished. That was the foundation, not friendship, not loneliness, consumption. I tore my gaze away with a scream, collapsing onto the floor, gasping like I'd surfaced from deep water. Elise remained seated, watching me with a sorrow so twisted it became monstrous. You looked at me, she whispered. So now you can't unsee me. My voice shook. What do you want from me? She smiled, small, hopeful, horrifying. A witness, a place, a life. I want to be real. And if I can't have that, her voice dropped to a tremor, I'll take yours to make it mine. I backed away until my spine hit the closet door. I won't let you. She stood for the first time in days, unstable, flickering, but solidifying as I acknowledged her. You don't have to let me. You already opened the door. Something in me buckled. The meds, the memories, the fear. They swarmed until I couldn't separate my thoughts from her voice. I screamed for my mom. No one came. I threw a lamp. It passed through her. She didn't flinch. Then she moved so fast the air fractured and her face hovered inches from mine, eyes widening like black suns. See me. The world blinked, and suddenly, she was gone. The room was silent. The air was still. For 3 whole days, she did not appear. I tried to believe I had won, that I had starved her out, that ignoring her had erased her. But on the 4th morning, when I walked into history, my blood turned to ice. The desk beside mine, her desk, was no longer empty. A girl I had never seen before sat there, pale and wide-eyed. She smiled at me, small and nervous, like she was waiting to be saved. Hi, she whispered. I'm Elise. And my vision blurred because she wasn't looking at me. She was looking through me like I was the empty desk now, like I was the one fading.